Hi, I'm Nicolette.
And I'm Sean.
And welcome to the Graveyard Shhift.
In this podcast, we talk about true crime mysteries and the paranormal.
This is where we dig up new dirt on old stories that you may or may not have heard before.
We try to gather as many facts as possible and then put our own spin on what may have happened.
We don't gather all the facts, just enough to tell the story.
So if we've missed something important, let us know.
But don't be a dick about it. And please, keep your private detectiveness to yourself.
Other than that, kick back, relax, and welcome to the Graveyard Shhift.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Nicolette.
And I'm Sean. And welcome to the Graveyard Shhift.
Today we'll be covering the story of Lizzie Borden. Have you heard of this story, Sean?
I have heard of the story of Lizzie Borden, but I think a lot of what I've heard growing up was more related to the rhyme.
So you've heard the rhyme.
Yes, I've heard the rhyme, definitely.
But it's actually very inaccurate.
Yeah, which is what I'm finding out now.
Yeah, so Listen to this. Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41.
Wow, and
it's pretty creepy.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy, and I remember, I remember hearing that as a kid. But my parents, my grandparents, they said it almost like it was a joke, like be careful,
you'll get the axe.
Get the axe, exactly. but so tell us about what's inaccurate about the rhyme.
So the inaccuracy is that her stepmother was not actually hit with an axe at all. It was a hatchet.
Right.
But also the number of times that she was bludgeoned with this hatchet was only 19. And then her father got like 10 or 11 hits with the hatchet.
So where did they get 40 from?
They're just, they're trying to be cute about it.
So was there a tune to this rhyme, or didn't people like jump rope to this or hopscotch or something on the playground?
Yeah, the girls on the playground would say the rhyme and jump rope to it. And it was really kind of sinister, and it kind of like hearing little girls say that nursery rhyme and jump rope to it is really sinister and creepy.
That's pretty dark for the playground. Honestly, yes. That is, yeah. So, okay, will you tell us a little bit about the real story of Lizzie Borden?
Sure. Let's take you back in time to August 4th, 1892. Well, in Fall River, Massachusetts, in August 4th of 1892, a heinous double murder happened that was the crime of the century for the time. This couple was murdered, and supposedly by their daughter.
Right.
She was suspected of murdering her parents because of various reasons. One was her father had killed her pigeons. Another reason might have been that he was abusive toward her sexually. She was wanting money from her dad, and she wasn't going to see any of it until he died.
Right.
So there are many motives that it could have been, but the weirdest part about this is the mystery has never been solved.
It is a completely unsolved case, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what are the details of the crime? See, one of the things that I know you had told me that I was kind of surprised about was that from the nursery rhyme and from growing up hearing the story, I thought Lizzie was like a teenager, a young girl who killed her parents.
That's what as I was growing up, that's what I thought too. But she was a 32-year-old spinster lady living with her dad and stepmom. And she had no intention of getting married at all.
Right.
I think her father kind of was pressuring her toward that, which, I mean, for the time, you kind of don't, it looks bad on you if you're
It was unusual.
not married.
Yeah, it was unusual for the time.
But, and also her sister wasn't married either.
Yeah.
Emma Borden.
It was her older sister? Or?
Older.
Yeah.
She's 10 years older than Lizzie. And she had, when their mother had passed away, Sarah, she died at the age of, I think it was like 40s or something like that. Emma was 12, and Lizzie was only 2. And then 3 years after that, Andrew, their father, had married this woman named Abby Durfee Gray. And Lizzie didn't like her at all from the beginning.
Okay.
So she didn't call her mom or anything like that. She only ever called her Mrs. Borden as like here's a jab at you.
Right. Mrs. Borden. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, we're not cordial, but we'll be cordial right now.
Uh-huh.
So every time in the house that they would see each other, I don't think that they ever really tried to converse or talk to each other. They rarely ate meals together because of whatever reason. They just didn't want to be in the same room as this woman. And when Sarah had died, their mother, their actual biological mother, Sarah had died, Emma had vowed to always take care of baby Lizzie or protect her in any way possible.
And now I've heard some other things about she was upset that her father was very wealthy, but that they lived below their means or something like this.
Yeah. So even though he was actually raised in wealth,
Right.
and his family growing up, they were really frugal as well. So I don't think that he was ever left any money. I think that he had to come up in wealth himself.
Right.
So he kind of paved his own way by owning, textile mills and property, and he worked at the bank. And then the last place that I ever heard of him being, a director of or whatever was this Durfee Savings and Trust, which Durfee, okay, so I have a theory on this. Durfee happens to be Abby Borden's middle name.
Right.
I think that he married her to gain control over Durfee Savings and Trust Company.
Interesting. So okay, so there's a lot of tension in the household, but can you take us through the details of the crime, of what happened?
Okay, so allegedly, what happened was Bridget, their maid, was washing the windows, and Abby went to go make the bed that Lizzie and Emma's uncle had been sleeping in the night before. He actually left to go to his niece's house to go check on her and do a few errands around the town. And making the bed or making up the guest room was one of Lizzie and Emma's jobs. Emma was out of town, so she couldn't take care of it. Lizzie, not sure what was going on with her, why she wasn't doing her job. Who knows? Could be any reason at all. But Abby decided to go and make up the bed in that room. So Abby Borden went into the guest room to go make up the bed.
Right.
She was facing her killer at the time.
Okay.
So when this hatchet is used on Abby, she gets hit on the side of the head with the ear, and it causes Abby to spin around and fall face first onto the floor,
Wow.
making it so that her nose and her forehead are impressed into the floor. After that happens, she gets 18 more bludgeons with the hatchet to the
18.
back of the head.
Oh my God, man.
Can you
That's
imagine how much
crazy. I mean,
blood is all over the room?
Yeah, I mean, what state was her body in even when they found her? I mean,
So from what I've seen from the crime scene photos, she was slumped onto the floor, like her knees under her, and her forehead on the floor, but the back of her head is just demolished.
No, that's crazy. And so then, all right, so she was killed first, and then what was going on with Andrew at the
So that's the only part of the nursery rhyme that actually is accurate, is in the sequence of when they were murdered. Mm-hmm. Just to put that in there. Andrew had come back to the house at about 11 o'clock-ish, 10:30, 11 o'clock, something like that. He had tried to put his key in the door, and it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So he had to knock to have somebody let him in. His own house. Are you kidding me?
That's like,
So then the maid comes down. They call her Maggie. She's not Maggie. She's Bridget.
Bridget, right.
I don't know why they did that. But anyway, she comes down to open the door, and she's trying to open this door, and it's stuck.
Oh, that's
like
weird.
Somebody jammed the door with something. Who knows what?
Yeah.
But she's like, trying to open it, and she says, "Fuck," or something. I don't know. And then she hears this laughter coming from upstairs, and she recognizes the laugh as Lizzie. And so she finally gets the door open. Andrew comes in, and he's asking, so where's Abby? And Lizzie created the story of a messenger coming with a summons.
Right. I heard this part. Yeah. Go on.
So-
This is interesting. This is very.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a messenger comes with a summons claiming, or she says, that a friend of Abby's is sick, so she's been now called away to visit a sick friend. Little does anybody know that she is upstairs bludgeoned to death. And Andrew comes in and he's like, okay, whatever. I'm just, you know what? I'm tired. I'm going to go take a nap. So he goes to the couch in the sitting room and lays down for a little bit. And then the murder happens to him.
Right.
So 10 to 11 times in the face, because he's laying like
Right.
this on the couch.
Laying there asleep, just asleep on
And
the
she's
couch.
just asleep on the couch.
And then a
taking nap.
hatchet. Just,
You know how dads do.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And they hits him
Yeah.
in the face.
In the face.
One of his eyeballs was out and split in two,
My God.
and his face was bludgeoned to unrecognizable proportions.
No, it seems to me that there's a lot of anger and aggression
Right?
in that crime. This isn't just one axe and then
No.
you're dead. No, this is
Yeah, this is a rage killing.
Right.
So there had to have been more to the story that we don't know as to why this could have happened. And maybe it was Lizzie. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation on this because,
Yeah.
like I said, he murdered her pigeons. And the reason why
Right.
he murdered her pigeons is because he thought that neighbor kids were going to come hunting them, which is so ridiculous. And then
I heard this story that I heard like this little weird anecdote that I have no idea if there's any proof of this or how they would know this, but there was a story going around the town that Lizzie was upset about the fact that they were living like people that didn't have as much money as they actually had, and then she was on the hottest day of the year. She was served week-old mutton soup, and she like freaked out and snapped. I was like, okay,
right. Well,
I
don't know if that was the full story, but I mean, yeah, okay. She was kind of pissed off that she was living in. It wasn't a miserly part of town.
Yeah, right.
But there were a lot of immigrants, Irish immigrants for the time.
Okay.
So she felt that she was living amongst squalor, even though she was a very wealthy woman.
Right.
But also, her father would never share that wealth with
Right,
her. She wasn't making any money. There was no way for a woman to make money back then.
Right.
You know, so she's living off of an allowance,
Okay.
and she would save her allowance all the time for clothing. Lizzie would often go to the department store and steal things.
Really?
Yes. And so the owners of the department store would see this or know it was happening and say, just put it on Andrew Borden's tab. It's fine. He'll pay for it. So she thought she was getting away with something and wasn't. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, it's crazy because the image that I don't know that I had is of just from having grown up with the nursery rhyme is of this young girl who was like this crazy but to think of her as a 32-year-old spinster living with her parents and upset about
that's only part of it because there's so much to unpack about this story. I mean, it could have been that she was very upset about the wealth. It also could have been that Andrew Borden was abusive towards her.
Right.
In a very what do I want to say? Very inappropriate way. Because stuff like that was happening back then. People didn't look at that as a crime of any kind. And also now she's of age, so why not?
Right.
Ew.
Oh, hey, Lizzie.
There's a lot of incest stuff going on. Gross. But I could see how she would be the one to kill them if that was actually happening because stepmom's not doing anything about it.
Right.
And
Mrs.
kind of turning
Borden.
the other way.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into the details. You're going to take us through the details of the investigation, the case.
Yes, we are. Right after this break.
Thank you for tuning into the Graveyard Shift. We'll be taking a short break, so get off the treadmill, park your car, or just grab a cup of coffee during this brief intermission.
You can visit us at thegraveyardshhift.com.
With 2 H's.
Also, you can view our videos on YouTube.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
And email us at thegraveyardshhift@gmail.com.
Also with 2 H's.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back to the Graveyard Shift. Nicolette, you were telling us a little bit more about the details of the Lizzie Borden case and the murders of the Borden family, and I'm excited to hear a little more about this because I don't know a lot of the details of the investigation.
Yeah. So before we get into the trial, let's get into the investigation part of it. So when Lizzie was being interviewed by the police officers, her accounts were a little contradictory. She would say that she was outside instead of being upstairs or in the barn, or she heard a groan or a scraping noise, and then other times she said she heard nothing.
Really?
Which is really weird.
Just
changing all the time.
Okay.
Like she had no solid alibi for anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was many people that were thought to be the suspects of this case.
Really?
But everybody else had solid alibis. Like one of the people that they thought might have done this was an Irish immigrant,
Okay.
Another one was
lived nearby, or
somebody who lived nearby. That was just like somebody said that they had seen some strange person in the yard,
right.
So the neighbors were like, "Oh yeah, that was that person." But we might know
but
differently.
She was like the only person who really had.
She was the only one.
Opportunity, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because Bridget, the maid, was upstairs in her third floor bedroom, sleeping. After she was done washing the window, she wasn't feeling well. Even though Lizzie was like, "Oh, hey, there's a sale at this store. You should go." She was like, "I'm tired of from doing all the housework. Yeah. I'm going to go take a nap."
No, we were going through the story of the crime, and I had a question because I was interested in this too. Lizzie, all right, well, I don't want to... after Mrs. Borden, after Abby was murdered, how much time do they estimate was between Abby and Andrew?
Yeah, so that was about an hour and a half-ish apart.
Okay.
So it was a lot of time in between. Right. So when Bridget finally came down from Abby screaming about her father's dead and come quick and this and that, Lizzie says, "Go get the doctor," who lives right across the street, and he wasn't home. So she had to go somewhere else to go find somebody else, some other doctor, and wound up finding an Irish immigrant doctor to come over to the house and try to check him out and see what was going on. They didn't call the police.
Which is kind of crazy because you think about a doctor coming over to check on the status of somebody whose head has been whacked in.
Is this person dead? I don't know.
I don't know. Let me see what I can do here. But the police, I would think, would be the first call. But that's interesting.
That is to say that if this person was innocent.
Yes, exactly.
You would call the police first. But apparently people think differently and.
Right.
They like to call doctors first or get a second. I don't know, because it's family doctors will always protect someone else in the family. So, well, as you may or may not know, before the murders happened, the whole household fell ill.
Right. Okay.
And Abby Borden, Mrs. Borden, thought that maybe somebody was poisoning their milk.
Really?
Yeah, because Andrew Borden was not a very popular guy in town because he was that miserly kind of Scrooge-ish character, as you will, and so that's what she thought was.
Right. So she had this belief that they had their milk poisoned, and this was a few days before the events of the crime, or
this was within Abby, a couple days before. So that was Abby's speculation. Right. A neighbor had speculated that their mutton had been left on the stove too long.
Okay.
And they got food poisoning and they died that way.
Right.
Which is, I mean, I guess maybe, but no. In retrospect, they had actually tested the bodies for poisoning.
Yeah.
They took out Abby and Andrew's stomachs and tested those
Did they
to see
find
if there was.
anything?
They did not find it. There was no evidence of poisoning, which is really interesting because for that time, the forensics I wouldn't think would be able to find that,
You
but I don't
certainly
know.
wouldn't expect it to be as advanced in
Right.
1896. Or
1892.
two. Okay. All right. So they found the pharmacist who said that Lizzie had attempted to buy this
Prussic acid to seal a,
Right.
to seal to clean a seal-skin cape.
Right. Okay. So they thought maybe she was trying to use this to poison the.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she was denied that because it was like, why do you need this? There's
Yeah. That's
That's
it's
a little weird.
to show up at the pharmacy looking for the. Yeah.
yeah. So I think what her thought was, even though she was trying to cover it and say, I'm trying to clean something.
Uh-huh.
This is a very expensive cape I need to keep clean. She was going to put it in Andrew Borden and Abby Borden's food to kind of create a neater murder,
Right.
as it were.
Which brings us back to the concept that you were
Yes.
describing
So,
earlier. Yeah.
Statistically speaking,
Mm-hmm.
women tend to be a cleaner killer,
Yeah.
if you will. They choose things like poisons, like cyanide, to put in food to stop the heart from beating. So there's like no blood evidence, but in history we now know that people that poison people are usually women.
Right.
Men tend to go by way of like a more violent attack, like shooting or bludgeoning or.
So what
You
we're
know.
thinking maybe, and of course this is all speculation because this is an unsolved case, but we're thinking maybe Lizzie wanted to do something a little neater and poison them, but she wasn't able to because the pharmacist wouldn't give her the acid, and so she.
Yes. Yeah, she decided, well, I got to do it somehow. And
Yeah.
you know what? Men will be the ones to get the fall for
Right.
this. Some man is going to take the heat. Yeah. So the police had thought for a second that some man came in and killed because it was such a violent killing.
Yeah. That would be the first thought.
It made sense for the time.
So all right, so there were behaviors exhibited by Lizzie that led investigators to accuse her of the crime, to arrest her. There was something with a dress, right? Like a
Well, that
burning
was
dress.
part of it. Yeah, that was part of it. So let's go back to kind of just
Okay.
before that.
Yeah.
So John Morse, the uncle, came back into the house.
Okay.
Lizzie and Emma's uncle from their mom's side came back into the house and was staying with them for a little bit, just kind of because after a murder it's traumatic, and he wants to make sure that his nieces are okay. And then also a friend came over and stayed with them, named Alice Russell. I know she's not a very important character in this case, but we have to name names. So, police officers were kind of all around the house, just kind of making sure that everything was okay. And killers usually come back to the crime.
Yeah, that is the traditional pattern
Right.
of behavior. Yeah.
So they wanted to see what was going to happen within the next couple of days. So one police officer stated that he had seen Lizzie and Alice Russell going down into the basement with a kerosene lamp and a slop pail. And then both of the ladies came back up from the basement not that long after that.
Yeah.
And then only Lizzie came back down into the basement and looked like she was bent over a sink.
Uh-huh.
He couldn't tell what she was doing. He just saw that she was bent over a sink, like she was trying to clean something.
Right.
And then later on, it was said that Alice Russell, her friend, said to the court that she was tearing up a dress and trying to burn it because there was, quote unquote, paint on it.
Okay, so that feels like evidence of a
There's-
cover-up. There's
yeah,
something there.
I'd
Yeah.
say so. I mean, you got the changing story, you
Right.
got the weird behavior, you got tearing up of a dress. But here's the other thing. So some people seem to think that she did these murders naked.
Oh no, and that's funny because even that has made its way into like popular culture. The thought I've even
Absolutely.
before knowing any of the details of the story that you're telling us, I kind of heard like once that Lizzie Borden committed these axe murders naked. Yeah,
there was actually a movie that was recently made back in last year, I guess, called Lizzie. Chloe, what's her name? Savagan?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Chloe Savagan and Kristen Stewart. Is that her name?
Oh, okay. You know what? I saw this like scrolling through Amazon, and I was interested in.
I mean, they're kind of covering the myths of the story,
right?
So, and that's what I want to say is when you watch this, don't think it's true because a lot of it is not.
Right.
But they do follow a bit of the story that's kind of like, okay, it's interesting to think about. But I don't think that she was naked when she did these murders, because then also, here's another point, is that somebody else in the case, a police officer or whatever, had thought that she put on her father's coat backwards as like an apron.
Was there blood on the coat? Because it's okay.
Not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
But
it was kind of like balled up and shoved under a pillow under his head.
Right.
So.
So it would have been bloody anyway. So if you were trying to cover up your crime, you could use it as a little.
You would do that.
Man, that's
I know.
because lot. I mean, this is a bloody crime. This is a very messy crime. So blood is going to get
everywhere. Now, and that again, so that's probably why she had ripped up her dress and burnt it.
Okay.
Some have speculated that Emma, Lizzie's sister, was the one who said, you need to get rid of that dress because, as we know, she promised to take care of her baby sister.
Right. Was there any thought, and then we'll get into the trial. I know we wanted to talk about the trial, but was there any thought that that Emma had conspired with Lizzie prior to the murders, or was it just thought that maybe she helped her cover it up? Or
actually, there was speculation that she did the murders herself.
Really?
Emma, yeah. So even though she was out of town or out of the country or whatever, she was speculated to be part of the murders, but she was never brought on trial.
Okay.
It was also speculated that Bridget Sullivan had been a conspirator.
Which would make sense because she was there, even if she wasn't in the room.
Party.
Then, she was. All right, but so can you take us like a little bit through the trial of Lizzie and how that went?
So the trial of Lizzie Borden began on June 5th, 1893.
Okay.
She's still a 32-year-old woman. She goes into the courtroom and she's very non-emotional, or her emotions were erratic. Sometimes she would giggle a little bit, and that was disconcerting to people because they're like, you're kind of not acting right. Is this how you grieve? That's weird. There was times where she would just, kind of look sad or straight-faced, or, a lot of people didn't know what to think of this crime or this person who was suspected of doing this crime.
Right.
And there was a point in the trial where they brought out the skull of Andrew Borden, and were using the head of the hatchet to kind of match up, see, this matches here.
Right.
This is so we can figure out this is actually the murder weapon. And just before that happened, the cloth or whatever was covering the skull fell off of the skull, and Lizzie Borden fainted in the courtroom.
That's some courtroom drama there. That is.
Well, I mean.
Yeah. Wow.
She was really into actresses.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that later.
Yeah, because I.
But then I think that was kind of like the determining factor for a lot of the jury. She was amongst a jury of her peers, 12 jurors, not just the judge. So there was like a farmer in there, and a dressmaker, and an Irish immigrant, and people, people had daughters around her age. So they basically looked at her like one of their own.
Right.
And
plus not all the evidence was allowed to be submitted.
Yeah. So the prussic acid was axed from the case, if you get my drift.
Okay.
And there was other evidence that was not allowed in, the dress because they didn't have it anymore because it was burnt.
Right.
So they can't really prove anything off of that. Then there
just wasn't a whole lot of evidence
no.
against her that was, other than the...
No, and to be honest with you, the police officers that were at the crime scene didn't really take a thorough look around, and they admitted that in the trial.
Okay.
And the reason they said was because Lizzie Borden wasn't feeling well.
Wow. Okay.
So, and it was considered to be very taboo for you to go into a lady's room if she did not allow you to. So, I mean,
homicide investigation is...
women could have gotten away with a lot back then.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
how long did this trial last?
So the trial seemingly lasted for about 15 days. Okay. And the jury went into the next room and immediately said not guilty, but they waited for an hour until they came back out.
Just for appearances?
Just for fun. To make it seem like they were really deliberating over this.
They had snacks, maybe.
Yeah. Little cheese, little wine,
So Lizzie gets off. Maybe she didn't do it. Who knows? But
who knows?
But so she's acquitted, and then she goes on to live.
So she goes on after this. She gains her inheritance, and moves away from the non-affluent, it's affluent, whatever, part of Fall River.
Right.
And moves on to the Hill. Do you know what that place is like?
This is like the ultra wealthy district of
It's like Beverly Hills for us.
Right. Okay.
So it's very like posh and...
So she's buying mansions and all that.
This is the place that she wanted to live at in the first place. She was mad at her father in the first place for having them live in a miserly area and having so much money. But he was very frugal. Whoops. He was extremely frugal. Uh-huh. And, you can't be wealthy if you're giving your money away.
Right.
So, and that was his thinking.
True, yeah.
But she was like, no, I want to live over here with my friends.
So the lesson is, parents, give your kids a bigger allowance,
or make sure that they don't think that you have any money.
Right, exactly. Oh, that's the other thing.
Oh, I can't buy that for you.
Oh, no, definitely
I don't.
not.
I'm
we
poor.
Have nothing.
So she goes and lives on the hill, buys this beautiful mansion, and names it Maplecroft.
Okay. Maplecroft.
And she also changes her name a little bit. Not much, but she changes her name to Lizbeth.
Lizbeth Borden.
Mm-hmm. Her middle name is Andrew, guys. I just want to point that out.
Wait, Andrew?
Andrew. Lizbeth Andrew Borden.
All right. Another new piece of information that I was not aware of. All right. Okay,
it's very interesting to me how people would name their girls. I mean, today there are certain names that we name our daughters that can be converted into boys' names, which is cute. But I mean, to have the middle name of your father,
it's unusual now.
It's very unusual.
But it's all right. So well, we're gonna get into some of the strange activities that have happened since the murder took place and since Lizbeth was acquitted.
Yep.
And,
but we'll get to that right after this.
Thank you for tuning into the Graveyard Shhift. We'll be taking a short break, so get off the treadmill, park your car, or just grab a cup of coffee during this brief intermission.
You can visit us at thegraveyardshhift.com.
With 2 H's.
Also, you can view our videos on YouTube.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
And email us at thegraveyardshhift@gmail.com.
Also with 2 H's.
And now, back to our program.
All right, welcome back to the Graveyard Shhift. All right, Nicolette, now we're going to get into some very interesting stuff in the aftermath of the Lizzie Borden
it's
case
pretty creepy what happens. So let's get into the fact that after the trial, Lizzie moved to Maplecroft.
Right.
And she lived out the rest of her life at this place. She died at 66.
66, okay.
Of pneumonia. it was said that she had a friend that was an actress named Nance O'Neill, who spent a lot of time with her. And Emma and Lizzie's relationship kind of split apart at that time because actors at the time were seen more as prostitutes.
Yeah.
Or sex workers nowadays. That's what we call them. Oops, sorry.
But yeah, you don't want to associate with actors in that time.
Well, because it was just you're manipulating people's minds to think you're a certain way, and you're really not.
Right.
So
okay, yeah. But then, so the people on the hill didn't want to.
They didn't want to associate.
Yeah. Right.
So after the death of Lizzie, it has been said that the original house on 2nd Street,
yes,
in Fall River, that has actually become a bed and breakfast and a crime museum.
Okay.
You can stay there actually for $247 a night.
Wow. Get an overnight, get a breakfast, and find out all about murder.
Yeah, well, I mean, you won't be alone, that's for sure.
Yeah. So there are stories of paranormal activity here.
There has been. So the owner of the place has said that you're able to feel and see Abby Borden. Once in a while, you'll be able to feel and see Andrew Borden. And then there's this really kind of erratic, crazy energy that is speculated to be Lizzie Borden.
Wow. Okay, so feel and see. In terms of feel, like, are people feeling touching or like
sometimes? Sometimes it's touching. Sometimes it's like that electricity that feels like spider webs. Mm-hmm. If anybody has had any paranormal activity around them, they would know that the hair stands up on your arms. You're all over your body. Right. You get like weird chills and stuff. And once in a while, like ghost hunter type people, like Ghost Adventures crew, and this is actually a newer show, but it's called Kindred Spirits.
Right, I've heard of this. Yeah.
They have actually gone to the house. Kindred Spirits went there to help out somebody that worked there for a different reason, but they kind of got a little bit of, investigating done on the Lizzie Borden side of things, but not too much. The Ghost Adventures crew got a lot more.
Right.
And so Zach Baggins and his friends, as we'll call them, Nick Groff was part of this at the time, and Aaron Goodwin, who they like to shove in places and keep him in a room by himself, which is really funny, actually. That's kind of the only reason why I like watching it, is because they stick Aaron in really horrible situations. So there has been an encounter with a young girl who's about the age of 12 to 14, something like that.
Really?
And she was in Abby Borden's room looking at a necklace that was on the dresser. And Abby Borden's picture was like right, in front of her. So she's kind of like, messing with this necklace. And she felt a tug on her ear, like, get the hell away from that.
Yeah.
Like, like an adult pulling on somebody's ear to get them away.
Was
from
this
something.
Necklace something of Abby's that
Yes,
had been
it
left there
was.
as part of the decor of
Yeah, so it's a trigger object is what they call it.
Okay. Yes.
Then they will hear footsteps.
Yeah. Whispers.
Whispers, yes. Yeah. I also watched a Dead Files episode where Amy Allen was talking about the erratic, crazy energy that she was feeling from Lizzie Borden. She didn't like it. She was feeling like, oh, she's touching me, and
so that
really creeped out.
I would have a couple of questions, and that would be one of them. Have the paranormal experiences that people have described, have they described it as feeling like a malevolent energy, like a negative
from
energy?
Lizzie, yes, from Lizzie.
Yeah. And what about from Andrew and Abby?
Here's the other thing. So part of the Ghost Adventures crew investigation, there was a psychic medium that was with them for a portion of it, where they were sitting asking questions of Andrew.
Yeah.
And a voice came over the spirit box that said, "Tell him about the girl."
Oh.
Like really forceful. Like
Wow.
tell them the truth. You did this. You have to tell them now. So there's some slight evidence that something may have happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, see that's pretty creepy. That's pretty yeah.
I mean, but we never got the
Yeah.
true answer behind that because he wouldn't talk about it.
Right.
But he liked Zach apparently. He said, "Thank you, Zach."
Thank you, Zach. Are you serious?
Yeah.
See, no, okay, now I really want to see this. I want to see that.
Yeah, it's a really good episode.
And, no, I read something in an article somewhere about these being like the only ghosts or paranormal energy that bribe. There's like a bribery thing, right?
Wait, what? Bribe? Wait a second. Okay, so there's something else that I know about this.
Okay.
So in that house, these Bordens weren't the first to die on that property. There was Andrew Borden's uncle who owned a house right next door to this.
Right.
And his wife kind of went nuts and killed their 3 children, putting them in a well, drowning them in the well.
Are you
And then she
serious?
slit her own throat with a straight razor.
Okay.
So it's a murder-suicide situation that happened there.
That's another hugely traumatic incident.
So it's said that upstairs in this house, there are little children that will come and play in the room. So there's actually toys that are left there for these kids.
Okay, no, that was part of what I heard as far as like the bribery thing. But I heard it in terms of Andrew that the people leave coins on the desk to get him to come out or to.
I'd never heard that.
And then
but that's
toys
interesting.
to
for the
get
kids.
For the kids.
Yeah, you got to leave trigger objects if you want to get ghosts, but also be really responsible when you're hunting ghosts.
Yeah.
Because they can follow you home, and that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
You don't want them to follow you home.
And in a place like this, there's got to be so much energy, so much paranormal energy.
Oh, yeah.
And
so much fragmented energy.
Right.
So it becomes super erratic, like the Lizzie character, because to be honest with you, she's not just seen in one place.
Where else is she seen?
So she's still at Maplecroft, too, which is the place where she felt was her sanctuary. And if people go in there and they're like, oh, Lizzie, 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 she doesn't like that at all. She wants to be called Lizbeth. Over there. So. Okay,
so what encounters have people described there at Maplecroft?
They have, they felt her energy in Kindred Spirits, the episode that I watched. They actually got a full-on conversation with her where they were telling her, listen, people are going to come in and they're going to ask you about what happened. And she's like, no, I don't want to talk to them about it, pretty much. She was just like, I don't understand why they would want to. I didn't do it. I was acquitted.
Yeah.
Get this energy away from me. Right. I don't want it. I'm trying to live my best life in this life now. Yeah. So that was kind of an interesting thing to hear just through Amy Bruni's mouth.
Yeah.
Because, she's got the sensory deprivation device on with the spirit box kind of plugged into her headphones. So she's able to say the words she's hearing.
Say the words that she's hearing. Okay, because I was going to say that this is... that's some pretty elaborate communication.
Yeah,
there,
which is interesting, and I would kind of like to do that at one point in time.
Oh, I know.
We'll get to that.
We'll be visiting and going on location to certain places at some point.
Yeah. It'll be a lot of fun, guys. You got to stay tuned for those.
Yes.
So other things were like, footsteps, obviously, because they're still walking around these places. Yeah. One video I saw of Maplecroft, there was a guy that was kind of investigating around, and he heard noises like bangs and things like that. And when he turned around, he didn't say anything about this, but there was a chandelier swinging. Visibly, I could see it. And it's just like, that's something that happens with paranormal activity around. Yeah. And his buddy, the fellow investigator, was downstairs and wasn't making any noises. There are so many other like whispers and things that you hear that are just so
pretty
weird that people don't touch on.
Right, pretty vivid evidence. Now, have there been a lot of skeptics about this?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, there always are in cases of stories of paranormal activity, a lot of skepticism. And skepticism can be healthy in some ways, but have there been any people pushing back against the idea of this, particularly of where they have the bed and breakfast now?
Gosh, I'm sure there are. I haven't really heard of any, but
but it's a pretty well-known
anywhere
place to have experiences, encounters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anywhere that you or somebody is looking for paranormal activity, there's going to be lots of skeptics that go, psh, that's not real.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm of the sort of state of mind of like, I can't dismiss somebody's experience.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think that, like I always try to like go in with a little bit of healthy skepticism, but at the same time, I mean, there's evidence and feelings that you can't, and experiences
you
that you just
ignore
can't
it.
deny, you can't ignore.
Yeah.
And this is, and in a place like that where so much just the trauma that would lead to this kind of and so like and what are your thoughts on that as far as the fragmented Lizzie?
So because people have said that they feel Lizzie Borden in two different places, my thought on this is that because her energy was fragmented, the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast got her psychotic energy and the rage-killing part of her, and then Maplecroft got her kind of calmer, very, very intelligent energy.
Well, I mean, there's a logic to that. I think to that idea. There's especially when you consider, having potentially, or possibly committed an act of such violence and rage, but then gone on to lead a normal, peaceful life that felt very separate from.
Right. I mean, I think anywhere that you kind of feel attached to, eventually when you move on from this life to the next, you will leave a portion of yourself in certain places. So I don't, like, and we'll get into other stories of stuff like this happening, but I don't think that your energy just stays in one place. I think that it gets fragmented and kind of bursts into other places. Yeah. So yes, Lizzie Borden could be here, could be there.
That.
And I don't know.
Very interesting, and makes a good deal of sense when you think about it.
And I think that both places, both the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast, which again, you can stay there and experience this for yourself for a certain amount of money, it's not that expensive for an experience
that kind
like
of
that.
Experience in such a place with such history, that would.
And
the breakfast.
and now they are also opening up Maplecroft as a bed and breakfast where you can stay and experience that as well.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I'm not sure for how much, but I'm sure that they'll be coming up with a price. This is kind of a relatively new thing. The owner of the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast is now also the owner of Maplecroft, so they're kind of opening it up on both ends.
Right. Okay. How do you feel, or do you have any particular opinion on people turning these into businesses? Because this is not uncommon. The fact places that are known for as having had some paranormal activity, being haunted, if you will, are often turned into kind of money-making business ventures. How do you feel about that?
God, I'm kind of split on this because I would like to experience it myself. But also, I think that I feel like people are making money off of the dead, and it's terrible.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like having, constant visitors, paying customers there to have their own selfish experience with the, with the energy and spirits there.
Also,
then,
I think it pisses off the ghosts a lot, too.
I would think it would. I would think,
spirits that are inhabiting that place.
And yet, I would be compelled and interested to have that kind of experience myself, so I don't want to be a hypocrite.
So that's the story of Lizzie Borden, the murder, the trial, and the paranormal that happened after it. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Yes, and I have got a story for you for next time. You are going to love this one. It's going to be actually really something. All right, you guys, we will see you next time.
Oh, wait. If you have any experiences about going to the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast or Maplecroft yourself, please write to us at the Graveyard Shhift with 2 H's at gmail.com.
All right. And we will see you next time on The Graveyard Shhift.